Hello, and welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of sports. And another quarterback is on the move. Yet another
Got a
one.
whole lot of them this offseason, that's for sure.
After trading Carson Wentz to the Washington Commanders, the Colts have officially found their guy by acquiring Matt Ryan from the Atlanta Falcons. So, Tim, got another trade to dive into, and this is a special one considering where we are in the world. The Colts are the closest team to us. We know a lot of Colts fans, so I'm excited to break this one down.
Yeah, let's run it.
Let's do it. So the official trade details is that Matt Ryan is going to the Colts, and the Colts are giving the Falcons a 2022 third round pick, their third rounder this year, which, first of all, I think is an absolute steal because if we look at it overall, Matt Ryan is still not a bad quarterback. And we will get into that debate whether like Matt Ryan is still good later, because I know there are some people that are, not satisfied with getting Matt Ryan, which I kind of understand. It's their fifth starting quarterback in as many years with Frank Reich. But I also think out of like the five, Matt Ryan is the best since Andrew Luck. So I think it's an absolute win for the Colts. And as far as like price tag, they gave up.
I think they came away with a steal based on what they got for what they gave up, and the fact that the Falcons took on the salary too, which is what ended up being so major in this deal.
Yeah, the price tag for Carson Wentz was much higher, which blew my mind.
I guess it's mostly just about the ceiling and the age versus
well, they give up Carson Wentz. Talent. It was probably 2 second rounders and a third. And to get Matt Ryan, they only had to give up a third. Yeah, a third. So quite frankly, I think this is an absolute steal for the Colts, and on the Falcons side, the succession plan for, their next quarterback begins, which they quickly turned around and signed Marcus Mariota to be their new quarterback on a 2-year deal worth roughly $18.75 million. So at least the Falcons have their short-term solution, and they take on $40 million in dead money, which is the most in NFL history by $7 million. Gosh, that's a lot. But
I mean, I feel like the Colts they know what they're doing in terms of deals, and they weren't going to let the Falcons work with much wiggle room there in terms of what they wanted to do if they were going to give up if they were going to get Matt Ryan shipped out of there and go with a different option. And I think they orchestrated a great deal here, because I'm not even necessarily sure, at least from my perspective and what I've heard from different Colts fans and whatnot, I don't necessarily see this as their like long-term future or like full-time fix. I think what this is the building block, the main building block for the potential of the grand QB scheme for the Colts. Because I think what their plan is, or what their plan should be here. So you trade for Matt Ryan. He's got that veteran presence. He's been good in the league for quite a while. He can give you some solid quarterback play. I don't think he's going to lead you very deep in the postseason, especially with that roster, but he gives them an option that can win some games, keep them in relevancy, essentially. But I think what it's more about is the potential to trade up for, or see what spot they get in next year's draft a young, talented quarterback out of a quarterback draft class that has the ability to be particularly interesting one, and have him sit behind Matt Ryan for one more year, possibly two, depending on Matt Ryan's overall health, his playing time or whatnot, and how he's doing. And then you let that starting quarterback, or that drafted quarterback, whoever they end up getting, try to work his way into the limelight as their long-term solution. And I personally think that that's probably the best plan that the Colts could go on from this point forward. So I think that this puts them on a path towards a good solution, I think.
Yeah, and as much as I agree with that, and that could be their plan, I think it works out a lot better for the Colts in the short term, because if you look at the previous 2 years, it's a very similar roster outside of the quarterback position. With Phillip Rivers took you to the wild card and almost a playoff victory. With Carson Wentz took you to the doorstep of the playoffs, barring a horrible game at Jacksonville, which I think essentially cost him his job. But Matt Ryan is at this stage in their careers, I think Matt Ryan is a lot better than what Phillip Rivers and Carson Wentz have to offer, because if you look at Matt Ryan, he's not that bad of a quarterback. Last year was his worst statistically as a pro. His only QBR below 59 for his entire 14-year career. He had a 46.1 QBR, but we got to take that into context.
He had nothing to work with for most of the year.
His most talented player on that offense dipped and gambled his future away. We have a video on that one with Calvin Ridley's escapades. And then what do you have to work with? Kyle Pitts, a resurgent Cordero Patterson, and Russell Gage. And that team still won 7 games.
With Russell Gage as your wide receiver one, your running back being a running back converted from wide receiver who, granted, he played great, but a very unique kind of just throw him in their position. And Kyle Pitts, who, of course, was a decent receiver, but couldn't seem to find the end zone in America. It didn't give them a whole lot of options in having a particular dynamic offense. And I'm not saying that the Colts have that much more to offer in terms of receivers, but having the dual threat of having Jonathan Taylor in your backfield, including some of the guys that
Jonathan Taylor makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, and the receivers they have still definitely give him a better receiving core than he had in Atlanta. And they also have the ability with either this draft or in the next one, they have the ability with some of their picks to see if they might want to add to that receiving core somehow, some way, whether that be in the maybe second round or third round. That's the one thing that the Colts have been pretty decent at doing, is finding some sort of diamonds in the rough in some of those later rounds. So you could see that potentially happening in this upcoming draft to help that offense as well.
Yeah, and in terms of like going and getting guys for the Colts, Matt Ryan, his cap hit was huge. It's massive. But the Colts still have around $15 million remaining to play with. And the reason why I think the Colts were okay with trading for Matt Ryan and his huge salary is because they could afford it. And they have a team that's on the fringe of the playoffs, and Matt Ryan instantly makes them better than what they were.
There was nothing better that they could have spent that money on if they chose to go a different route on quarterback and then spent that money elsewhere. It wouldn't have improved their team more than bringing Matt Ryan has for them now. It filled that most important position that puts them in a much better spot to succeed this upcoming season.
Because here's the thing. I'm going to play devil's advocate for a little bit. If this doesn't work, this is their third straight season where they've brought in an older quarterback that is past their prime. Carson Wentz doesn't really fit the older build, but
I'd say past his prime definitely fits.
Yeah, not as good as they once were. Phillip Rivers didn't exactly work. Carson Wentz really didn't work. He's gone now. If this fails, Colts fans will be driven into absolute madness, just right off the deep end.
They're certainly already particularly frustrated, but I think what it comes down to is I feel like some people have to look at that long-term vision, because I'm not sure, as not necessarily as a fan of the Colts, but just looking at that roster and that their potential, I'm not sure if I see anything past like a wild card berth, potentially a wild card victory, losing.
But I do see a playoff team.
But I do see a playoff team, but you have to understand that doesn't put them in any better situation than what Rivers did.
But I think you have to understand
that this.
Well, Tim, I think the difference here now. I think the difference here now is the AFC is so much better than it was 2 years ago, because now with Phillip Rivers, you didn't have to exactly run that gauntlet.
No,
now you do, because
now it becomes a lot harder.
2 years better. Allen is 2 years better. Wilson
Herbert's
enters the division.
Carr has
still
much
doing
more
Carr
weapons
things
with more weapons.
Yeah, Justin Herbert has arrived. Same thing with Joe Burrow. You know, you don't exactly have to run that gauntlet. So I think in terms of like, you know, a wild card win or like expectations, I think part of the reason is because the AFC is so gosh darn stacked.
Yeah,
but I think the
thing is, they're not looking for consolation victories here. They're looking for the building of a strong franchise. And I still think the best option for that is to be okay with a mediocre season this season or next season, potentially, for the building block of that next star-studded quarterback. Because I think them getting that out of this round or out of this draft. So that's why they're not going to go with it.
I think you can set those building blocks while still being competitive with Matt Ryan because of what Matt Ryan.
Yes. Championship, no. And that's what I think that if you're talking about building for the future, the Colts fans and fans of really any football team anywhere are not usually satisfied with, oh, we won a playoff game, or oh, we won a divisional. You're trying to set the building blocks for a dynasty or for a solid franchise. You're not going to find that in the next couple of years with Matt Ryan. That's what I'm saying.
But I agree with you in the fact that I think having Matt Ryan gives you the best of both worlds. Where you can compete.
But I think it's still a stepping stone, though. That's what I'm saying.
No, exactly. But instead of being that stepping stone where you're 6-11, now you can be 12-5 and in the playoffs. So you still have the best of both worlds where you can at least get a ticket to the dance, not exactly like winning it, but he still allows you to build for the future if you decide that that is the route that you want to go. And I think that so. It's not that I'm disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
I just
think Colts fans need to be okay if they don't win like a divisional or the AFC championship and make it to the Super Bowl this year and next year. They have to understand that you still want that success. A little bit. If they get there, that's great. But this is not the championship team. You're still trying to build towards that with this move.
Exactly. So
then you got the Falcons. It's like,
do we really?
Where are we going? Where are we going here?
Do we really need to do that? Because I think we summed it up earlier with Marcus Mariota.
Yeah, because that's the thing. There's not much else there but the signing of Mariota, because you still have the giant question mark of Ridley. They haven't made any real specific moves to gain more of an offense. They re-signed Cordero Patterson, so they are sticking with him at that running back position.
Well, now Russell Gage is gone. Russell Gage is a member of the Buccaneers.
Yes, and that is also true as you lose more of your offense. So it's like there's so many question marks. I don't know if you really. I mean, I feel like they have to try to make some moves with this draft here. But what moves they're going to make, I don't know, because they have so many holes to fill that I feel like they're still 3 years out of a solid rebuild at least.
Which, guess what? The Falcons receiver core is so bad, it doesn't make me feel nearly as bad as a Packers fan now that Devontae Adams is gone. But this is not about my team. This is not about my team. I'm just emphasizing the point of how terrible the Falcons offense is now. And Marcus Mariota is going to lead the charge. Yeah.
We'll see how he steps into that role, because he wasn't a terrible starting quarterback when he had that starting position. He didn't really get much of a chance as that backup in Las Vegas to really do much of anything. Carr didn't really get injured, and they used him mostly in sparing running situations. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like he could be a decent quarterback, but the problem is he doesn't have much to work with. So I don't see a very high ceiling for him in Atlanta.
I don't see a very high ceiling for the Falcons, period.
Yeah. So Mariota with the Falcons.
that about sums it up. We got anything else to talk about in this deal?
No, I mean, I think we covered just about everything. It's definitely an interesting move. It solves some positional things for the Colts. It gives them an eye towards what their future might look like in these next couple of years. For the Falcons, all it does is really open up more question marks.
Yeah, Colts have their quarterback for the near future, which I think they can be very successful with. And the Falcons, hi.
Who knows?
Hi. The Falcons exist. But yeah, that's all we got. We have just gone through another major trade that has happened in the NFL. We've gone through a ton of them this offseason. We've been there the whole ride. A ton of them. And don't worry, we'll cover Deshaun Watson and his trade to the Cleveland Browns. But we are currently waiting for the Baker Mayfield question to get solved.
Yes, that's a big question mark that turns the future of the Browns to a much more clear sense once they know what they're going to get in return for Baker.
Yeah, so once Baker Mayfield gets traded, we'll do a Deshaun Watson video. We'll keep coming at you with more NFL content, more March Madness content. Baseball's right around the corner, so we got that on the rivalry out of state. And until next time, like and subscribe for more Running the Table content, and we out. Peace.